Hello, ladies and gentlemen, my fellow Liberians and residents of the Republic of Liberia. I bring you greetings from the members of the boards of directors, officers, sponsors, and peace advocates of Decanty Artists Theater Incorporated, commonly called DATI, D-A-T-I. I am Rabbi Joe Baba, the executive director and founder. Welcome. But first, let me tell you a little bit about Decanty Artists Theater before we get into our lecture for today.
La Osef Banania La Bida Iyinya Eleng Odiola Yesulanding Yato Banakila Kunda Ho Kundanda Velu Decanty Artists Theater Incorporated. Yanilang Palo Joseph Baba and Tweleng Njoa Sukando O Song Fangacho Ketelem Paminkando Yemami Idumunya Bunde Pombo Amekuda Ho Okando Ye Telem Paminkiolachi Sukando Le Tweleng.
Awio Nanyoa Nanyemo Joseph Baba Momo Luponya Ke Tuon Ho Dere Decanty Artists Theater Incorporated DATI. Onyine kere we nomo Berelu a Tuon Nyo Homo Lunya Poe Kere Tuon mo Oyeyo Awio Obisi Ambakao.
Today, the topic we're going to be discussing is about the African Liberian family as nucleus of the African Liberian society. In the last episode, I defined and classified the African Liberian family into two distinct categories. One, traditional African Liberian family in which polygamy, P-O-L-Y-G-A-M-Y, is practiced, and polygamy meaning having many wives and husbands by some Africans and Liberians. Subsequently, I divided the word polygamy into two categories. One, A, polygyny, P-O-L-Y-G-E-N-Y, polygyny is a marriage arrangement in which one man may marry two or more wives. And B, polyandry is a marriage arrangement in which a woman may have more than one man. This marriage system is very rare in Liberia, but it is practiced among some family members who swap wives. In the traditional African Liberian context, any woman married in a family is the wife of the family and clan. This is done not only because the family of the groom paid a dowry, $40 in modern day monetary value, or sometimes dowry may be paid in cattle or in valuable minerals such as gold, silver, or copper. Rather, it is because a wife is the prized possession of the family. The wife's interaction with men in the family in a polyandry marriage is permissible insofar as she is not forced to have an affair with these men, but that it is based on mutual consent.
Literally, swellable literally, Joa Sukando, Nanya Treleng, o so Fanga Joke, if they yetoni, Ayungu Malabele yo oko. Yungu Malabele yo Treleng, Menan Chodua, or Trelente Shia Tony, Femi Dumunyama Labela, no, since in no Yungula Lationa, no Yungule Mapululeng, no Yungule Makisileng. Yungule ma kisileng lechoni ma yungule vanana kila sinde telempa mi yungule ma pulu len lehe. Duya yungule ma kisilen ning lechole pioa. O yungule ma kisilen ning sinde mincha ma vanapono mindo chwa landu afanga. Duya vanalano be wa miama vanalano to o chape o no wandoba duye mi vanakung mi vanapono kung bohio o bovi vanalano kung famule yo o fen fulo telempa mi anakung o kwa pondaba so te ponda vite vanalano kung o lo yungo ba ma lano kokong povi yo te pombondoni o bendoni o lo lano kung ke ibe pa fulo ma lano kung o no bohio kono o lo londu o ba o kolile ke ta chelampe me o hiandu koli ma lano ta chelante o ba chening ma lano famule le mbolo o nyenkem wonda me yoncho le lancho leng dinancho a teshiani minghiolachi a nyadumulo a famule malabele yoko ducheni yungule ma kisileng a yungule ma pululeng kane sinsin labela no yungulan lationg yungule ma pululeng a yungule ma kisileng so don nancho a sukan do chwelene ayan nilang mila tuwe som valang.
Anyway, I will continue because I don't know what the Bible interpreter has a pause on. So we'll continue. However, the polyandry system provides security for the woman in the family. And in case of the husband's death, the wife can choose her new husband from among her husband's siblings so that she and her children may remain in the family. Traditional African Liberian families were cohesive and inclusive.
Meya banya dumulo na ya kani o yungule makisileng le ke vanalano di le te pono do hiobe bo nwao famule yoning bo chwa bo yulu anapono iso o anapono gongo wa pombo pono do hiobo o bendo pono do hiobo bo yulu du iso le bo londo ba bembu ma lano ken dike vanalano si de dio bo kendu wele tindando akpilia me olo kumbolo fambule yoto bo chwandwa bo handunda bacho mi fambule yo handu chwandwa bacho le mi nyenye fe yo nung mi chwandwa va o makende bengu.
Then one of the problems that we are faced with in modern day African Liberian societies is because our society is dualistic. We are battling with two different cultures, African culture versus Western culture. And so because of that, many of the citizens are kind of confused as to whether to be Kwi, which is, to imitate the Western way of life, or to be themselves, to be the people that they are, be Africans. And that's the problem. So modern day Africans and Liberians are faced with the dilemma of living a dual lifestyle. And this likely may be the reason most Liberians exhibit dual personalities. We are battling with ourselves whether to be a Westerner or to be an African, and that's a problem, a problem of identity crisis. That's what we're faced with right now in Liberia, because we have two different types of cultures that we are battling with, to either to live as a traditional Liberian or to live as a Liberian who is westernized.
Since la bela no namulan lation, do you need to swear pale benbe le na la bela since ni kanifodole kanwape bando ocho la bela no choni ke to o medium pe ba na cho du ke ya oche ma ka chonda nindo ka mapulo so du ni ka bo simbo nwandu pila bene o loku ye bo o va vanda di un pile ba o maka male ba bele yombo bo kanduka mapulo to sa o to sa ka mapulo bo ponga ka do malabe le yo opinya do amenduo de lan labe la sin no swe pale ben do bedwe amena loku mi hiolachi aka na makisho kesho mi kendo le beye kanifondole kama pulo huno bohun chwa fonde pe de bana na fe oye mamo wa ibanda chendu ma bana mapulu le lan kama pulo pe kuni bo maka ndo malabe le yo ocho kando pe yo.
Also, Liberia's national curriculum and most of the textbooks used to drive the instruction of these Black African Liberian citizens are not culturally relevant. That is, the books and things that are even used in the classroom don't talk about the way of life of the Liberian people. It tells you the way of life of the people in the Western world, or most of the books are written by foreign writers. So these writers are writing about things about their society, not about our society. So the Liberian students, those that go to school, instead of learning about what is happening in Liberia, they are learning about things that are happening in other countries. So as a result, by the time they graduate from college, they are not aware of who they are, and they don't know anything about Liberia.
Ta to fa pe yawla nancho pe ku osukula nimbali olang yawla di mibude ame vanchia a vasi de ye venda vene yumulanda landa va ye yenda to saye la bela ta mendi ampe yawla lang kwede la di mi ibude avana na ma la bele ya kole inya na mama visinde ya venda to saye yenenda to say la bela yenda to saye re yenenda chwa ya ma ho sava yenenda chwa ya ma ho to savale mun kwede jo obukuila ninte bukuilanda chwa machuna na nunda yala lang pede soncho le nindong aba na chelengo lende chelen ne yomulanda lango ko na muda kalenda len lenda hinni mawana pe ku labela nanu so na mimpuen unika pede aba na pinya na mama bisinde ya nyenkendenda to sa won pede munpo mbi minkubu mun didilen minchwa yomula mapulu la min handu wole bol min lwe osukula ning yawla lampe ko no di kongo kenang min kwepe ku aba na ko le kanifo dole yawla vela pung yanga da ko le.
So as a result, even though educated Liberians go to school and they learn, but what they learn is not related to the things that are happening in the country. So as a result, their education is not able to help them relate to the people that they are supposed to serve. So that's where the problem is, and we need to address that as a nation and people. Our educational system must talk about us. It must teach the students and the children about who we are as Liberians, as Africans, so that when they finish school, they will be prepared to serve Liberians and not be in the opposite way, where educated people think that they are better than the majority of our people who did not go to school.
Lela nchani la bele ya mako esuku masina dene ya olang pede mako pe ku masina dene ke afula do pe o manasina ma danda pe kunda cho bo thinking kani fondo le yawla da ko pe kulang ojo yawla dumunda amen na munda cho yele ojo yawla dumunda o ta ba be ba na ma tisi be a ti pe ka so no be minum ba jale num cho ambo ake ka so no kwingo mun pede a pe kunale le lang ko be suku min pe ku yawla min pe ku min ko chi lam pe ku be no pila ni miona mafula masina ma yo muchele mpo ko pe ku ni okobe baba fe ola bela ni osina nyenye ana mu kole osina nyenye fe bana tosa ma twa kisile lela nancho banda pe ko ni man kandu so mu tosa le twana masina bana su nancho wa bana su nancho la bela wa nang henan donga nang henan dong mi malo song bana mapulwa kani nyenda jona mu pe ko son dan to sa woncho munni humbia mun labe la nanu ma humpego ta kwenda tende asina pen nyenye fele me ma wanda te mala nyato sa son di ompile num labe le no ma ko esu ku ma ko pe ku ke asina nyenye ava nanu nda ko le me labe le no ma renche.
And a typical example is with the new generation of Liberians. Most of them are from traditional Liberian backgrounds, from different ethnic groups. But if you ask them to speak their language, they will tell you, I don't know how to speak that thing. That's an example of the failure of our education. Our educational system must be able to preserve those different local Liberian and other African vernaculars, those languages, Kran, Kru, Grebo, Kisi, Bandi, Pele, Mandingo, Ma, Dan, Kru, Bassa, all those languages to be taught in the schools because they are our languages and it's our responsibility to preserve them. So if we don't preserve our languages, if we don't teach them to our children in the schools, then they will become extinct. Then we will no longer be able to speak our own language. We will be speaking other people's language. And when you speak other people's language, it enslaves you to the culture and the belief and the practices of the people whose language you are speaking. So that is why here in Africa, that's why we have a problem on the continent, because we are speaking other people's languages. We are speaking English, which is not an African language. We are speaking French, which is not an African language. And we are losing our ability to speak our native tongue. And that destroys the mentality of the people, and it makes them to be subservient to all sorts of corrupt practices that are not related to their history and culture.
Tamasio aso na johe di nyoe o culture ni ta no be sintin bando bodimia avayaya isino ya joni ke anyu na mpia di bifishi o dimia di bifishi le ichi depende kanifo dole banani akwe ya kwa ya o na lo makisile bando bodimia ndudu a mano no joni ke o chi Emmanuel me mano no ye kieku so ye ncha ye ulwe o chani ulwe ya ta chandi ye ulwe so mangale pile joni akwe ma ko pe ku ulwe he ta dimi di nyekendele na kisha mamnum ulwe abe mamnum kani o to so mangala num de meme mpe ku di ave mandale lelanten kadu person na mangala mpe ku mi twadi mi simidi ma so ekpe joni ma mi ba so mangala mu o la bela ishia manua bandia lo magio abana na fe mi twa so mangala mu mi kadu mu to sa suku itwa na ma mu mpe ku be ma chandi di mi obe men no la mi chala to ana mi sukan ke me ya to nae kani mama ishio jani teche kishiele michapule bene na nkelo kusukan nado sukan tendo la balile odumun laibulele lelang la bele ya nchanu mi jiando minjwa somu min kadu mumpe ko suku me hivi mun laji me changa chelen twa me pulu to na ma twa ma tu na di na no ma hi di son dan la ti mi va na na fe hum bo hum bi mbri bala tiong ta chi pulu hele ko be na to sa valile muli be ba mi alodo ma ko ba tendo to sa valile ba kwa ni du numba ni du num na le men chi pulu hele so en de mangale to ma hu ko na di ma pa fu ma mi pe ku di ta pe ku le me ato wana ti le ato nyen to sale to lan fu pe gu son na mangalang na be mi sima bana mi nola mi sukan first and be do bila.
So it's very important for us to learn how to speak our own languages and also to live our culture, to practice our cultural beliefs so that we can be empowered to do those things that are very important for us, those things that we need to do for our country. As a result of the kind of educational system we have, when people graduate from college and all of that, they think that they are different from the people that they are supposed to serve. And they separate themselves from the people they are supposed to serve because they don't know them. They don't know the culture. They don't know how the people think. They don't even know how to speak the language. To communicate with people, you must speak, you must understand and speak the same language. So if I am crying and you are speaking your big book in English and I cannot understand it, then there will be a communication barrier. And it's this communication barrier that is affecting Liberia today. Most of the people who are in power don't know the history and culture of the people that they are dealing with. And that is a problem. So we need to address that. And I hope that this program will help Liberians to understand that we have a whole lot of work to do.
To fa na kwa o school aninda. O kwa school be buko pe kumbo sola degree la bendu landang bo ambo handungo le bo mandundo luto posi na yabo ni banando amadu akani mong du ko le bo ko pe ku ya ko dimiona mbo chi bo fula bo dimi andundu je won le nyela makitile yela ya won je nyela pulu atwa mahu a kosuti yondo bonni o twa pe bongo twa yo le ngo bango la bolo nanja chioni le halikpe machendu ma okondundu atwa kondundu ko esikumbo pe ku yabo dia to se kembe o chobe wana makishi odi mi abo ya chobo ye kondundu nado nchobe pen nado ncho lambi ale ncho sulante nado ncho sanyenye di umpilele so wana wale de kabe ma yedu o sondo kolo ye kela ko banda dubu achi eso mangala ivana kwa onda bamego achi eso ende mangala ele so akwepelong numpila ya chape tama tu na fu o chape o fu do tu so mapulo si o va to sabni bo puenga kisile ndole poli bendo pila dia kenchi eso bende la bela ne ma o yambe mi bando mano so ekende le dimi ta chi eso mangala wana konde memen to sa o bana kongo bi no bilane eta chape so mangala edimi asodo pe wando sinanye nge male dimi o le lang kombo mi sim na pila min to sa son kendo pila le lang pe nancho tweleng palen dile ngo pelon choni le mi la bele ya mi sinama no valo kese le to sa le la bela boa menang nge ma do boa ya.
And also because we speak a language that is foreign to our history and culture, it also affects the way how we interact with one another. Like in the beginning of this episode, I kind of gave you examples of different types of marriages. And because when Liberia was established, Liberia has two unique cultures. The culture of the settlers who came from America and the cultures of the people that the settlers met in Liberia. The settlers, their marriage system is monogamy. They practice monogamy, one man, one wife. Whereas the indigenous people they met on the ground practice polygyny, one man, many women. So with the one man, men and women, the families were large. So we have an extended family relationship system. Whereas for those settlers and people who practice monogamy, which is one man, one woman, you know, their concept about brothers and sisters or the concept of family relationship is different from the way how the Africans and or the indigenous Liberians consider who their family, who their brothers and sisters are. And I'll give you an example. And that example is because of the language that we speak. Our traditional languages do not have specific terms for uncle, cousin, nephew, niece, you know, and so forth. But what our traditional languages have, they have terms for brothers, sisters, ma, and pa. So in the traditional family system, anybody who is your blood relative is your brother or your sister. But that's not the case with the Western culture. With the Western culture, the only person that can be your brother or sister is the person who shares the same father or mother with you. So now that's the conflict that we also have, psychological conflict that Liberians are going through, that Africans are going through on the continent of Africa, as to whether to keep our traditional African system, family system and belief, or whether to be a Westerner. And so that's a conflict as to whether this person is your brother or your sister. In the Western setting, your father's a brother is your uncle. The English has a word that designates that specifies who that person is to you when the person is your father's brother or sister. But in our traditional language, your father's brothers and your father's mother are your mothers and your father. They're not uncles, they're your mothers and your fathers. So that's a difference, that's a cultural difference. And we are experiencing that in the way how we interact with one another in this modern day time. So those are things that we need to spell out and explain, you know, in our educational system, so that those who go through the educational system, by the time they graduate and come out to work to serve the people, they will understand why the traditional man calls his brother's son his son, or his brother's daughter his daughter. And then we can go from there.
Le menanke sonna mangala minke namu na min koman namu banda chenlen de mapulu machu nawe le lang nanchu hawla belane banda wana fe ocho nanong o chapter jiang ba panasu ye machi yachi bana ma vene yachi ba ye atosa ye na yatosa le ta to fabe menan kandu program do ho mindu munyama jungulen la bela jungule ma kisilen sile pando min bana pono min do to lando a chalang ke me wana kan chonondo lende ma pulu ma hu madi ma bana pono lano pile dia ta na be wana pono do to lando a chalando ma ke ma jungulen le vale le choni ampula lengo wani jungule bendu pando ndupile no lando a ya lando a hiolu de lan chwa kan lando akan fambule landalang da kwede masinuni ka yugo pile diom pilo bo wanda ten ke hunoma bana banda tonondo lende mapulu ma humadi mi bana pono pile ano pile ni yugule le yono nye do na toko bendu pila ma chama wo sanioni ando chapten da lando abelu to anda kanki ne da sinani bana chile nga hinimbe adime akpo kondundu akon onkunum do choni ko himpe ko ente num do choni kan kwede onku ente kan kwede o yugule makisile ni te bando we finya numte meje manum to beje manumte benum o pombonum o yugule makisile ni ke pulo ahu no ma hu pio nyenye fe ma ke nyenye fe dio la ye le la nanjo ha pio wanda la be la ni ye no mi sina so mu valam mi to na sina me yungule ma kisilen le shoye me vando lo kumboa pombo o bendo le vando wananda tu kale pile dando fula o yungule pile pombo velu bendo velu o mafula na pile o tie pile menda lo kuma vadium pile ma pombo abendo o ye ma so ko nga fula be shedi ma akobe sugu ma ko pe ku di miona mafula mahima kandu valo asina menda to savallo ye kaniko dole asina nye vananda ye mao asina vanacho vananda o asina nye finye ho to salo asina nye finye ho to salo ela nan no ni min twa jungule makisle min twa namu na manye pepe min bidu balation min hivindu lati menan lokumi la bela osim bo moto sanya abando ye lela mvana ni ala bela isimnu min pe kun chwania mpe kunda kala nga yugule makisile ngoko.
So in other words, what is giving us a problem right now among Liberians and Africans is whether to live as an African or whether to live as a Westerner. Because in the African setting, anybody who is your blood relative from the same clan, from the same biological background, that person is your brother or sister. Not first cousin, third cousin, fourth cousin, like the way they do in the Western system. The Western system segregates, but our traditional system regards everyone, inclusive. It's very inclusive. It does not segregate, but it includes everybody in the family as brothers and sisters. So that's that aspect of our life. Our national life, our family life is important. We as a people are brothers and sisters. As a nation, we are brothers and sisters. That's our African concept. When we decide to be Western, that's when we begin to segregate, to say, oh, this person is from this ethnic group, this person is from this church, this person is from this denomination, all these different things where you separate people and all of that. Those kinds of things did not really exist like that in our society, African society. And these are things that we must be teaching in our schools so that we will stop segregating among ourselves, start discriminating based on ethnic background or based on religious background. We should see one another as brothers and sisters because we are from the same nation. We are from the same country. So the country must come first, and everybody within that country will be brothers and sisters. So we are a big family, a big Liberian family, a big African family. We should not be segregating. But when we decide to live as people that we are not, when we decide to speak a language which is not our language, then it forces us to think differently of ourselves. And thinking differently of ourselves, that what causes us to get in the confusion we are in today. To get out of the confusion, we must begin to think as ourselves. We must begin to appreciate our culture. We must begin to appreciate the languages that God gave us. God gave the Chinese man his Chinese language, and he proudly speaks it everywhere he goes, at the United Nations and all of that. But when you and myself got to go to the United Nations to speak, we don't speak Kru, we don't speak Kram, we don't speak Grebo, we don't speak Kisi, we don't speak Lama, we speak English. And English is not our traditional language. It's not our native tongue. So trying to be like somebody, trying to be somebody else instead of being yourself is the problem that we have in Liberia. And that creates hypocrisy, deceit, and hatefulness.
Me ya de mo nya ya e kan. Babela since sweat na no sway pa kala bendu. mandindi ikendule le mi ifulave choni na la bele ya sinsi into nyum danning le yo choba nyum damma choba asimpe agiang ba itosa som mapulong o itosa som makishong itosa som makishong be de vanda che yacho itosa peswe namu na makisho di miam to sabe de ne vanda che yacho so somu pale ni ni chonni ijo now the boat ijo yandala lang le yananche yandalang ijo yando le de manana sim opeli pila jole kanifondo le anda tuna pulwe min twa pulwe he min yidi ma lijo suele bolleni sinsi ngachwa be vando kisino makwado lende mapulo odi mikishe le kani kolan kani long mishoni bendo e bidu ojo kisino chole pulo agu le lambo simne kambo bi chenne ka pulwe he pe ko le me odi mi pulwe ya suejo sue mangala endoli kenwa Chinese ya baba kwepe suende mangale di miodi nyekele kende wanachunda lole wanachunda kokale wanachunda yidole di miodi first embedo pila mele na la bele yamin ke sonna mangala ndiyo min puem pole a sonna mangala min twa pulo he min kilungole bonancha a lena melaka o twandi ni bo ngandi tempe ku pe sonna mangala heli jowale kanita pe ku pe na munu mdoma sina du valang asina ma ajo kishedi bio Kenya mano no je maye ito nyate ngo ben o bendu ye o pomboye ito nyate nyam ano no afambule ye natoni tempegu sonna magala mpela bela ho no la na kwede min don dio pile min twala bela ma kisipilo kwetoni na la bela javana pile kwena ntoni nimpengi chejo ho na pila ten impegi nyidu ando num kisino num loma no num mano no num yo no min mpeku pe namu na mi sina dunye kende mi na mi kisino fula bo hevan yama mi loma di mi a bo nu hingone tungo nu hingone anani wana hingone ele me na mpuanga namu na poliye lela nchobe vando una no mi kekpe ngbowo nchombe nke ngbere nchobe vando hiwo na no mi kemendale bokolo kendo mamembu kote kaniwe pululenle himile humpio na ate lela mpengin kala nancho landang min hiding kisi na alachi min simpegbe le kisi hibiolachi.
Very good. And then also it goes without saying that in our homes where we live as parents, as father, mother, children, in our homes, that the home is a place where everything begins. Charity begins at home. So in your home, in each Liberian home, we should be teaching our children the history and culture of the ethnic group that we come from. If you are Pele and you went to school or whatever it is, even if you don't go to school, it's important that you teach your children about Pele history and culture. Teach them the Pele language. Don't let your children just go out without knowing how to speak that language. Some of us made that mistake, and I hope and pray that you won't make the mistake. But in the home, teach your children the traditions of your forefathers so that they themselves will pass it on to other people. That's all very important. And then also, as I was saying, in our tradition, we regard one another as brothers and sisters. So it doesn't matter what ethnic group you come from. The crewman is my brother. The crew woman is my sister. The crown man is my brother. The crown woman is my sister. The gravel man is my brother. The gravel woman is my sister. The vile man is my brother. The vile woman is my sister. The cola man, the person, fella man, kid man, everybody, Mandingo, everybody whose ethnic group constitute the demography of Liberia We are all brothers and sisters, and that's the message that I want to set out to all Liberians, for us and Africans, to understand that we are all brothers and sisters.
La bela na la bela na pile pe nanchoni kombo abendo nanchoni ye ma nanchoni le me na nke suene mangala e ninke namu na pe kuye du to sane mimba ha me nanchona e ki sha de midi ya choni ya fish ki sha cha ni ya bupe awodi obo la sinani num kisino ato o jungule num denning chuanum dam velwa ape kuda namu num do kole achwa be diolang akoke ho diolang diola mapulu lang ke chuanum do diolang diola o nombo sinama dundu kisino choni o du loma no choni o padino choni o dundu fene no choni ke achwa be diolang ake bando diolang a Mervyn Scott nan la jo diola ma kisile jo diola ma kisile la cholante ke du diolang diola o sinama namu do cho yomo ma pe kundo namu do ko shedi o simpe o di mea yaya no ya choni yaya anawara ya choni lelang la bele ya no min simnu wo peloncho le min pe ku chuana anamu ma kishoko kanifo do na pe de la bela ba mende no ba padi no ba loma no ba kisi no na fu yo lo kun ba pilo pe na njoni na po wa na pile na njoni.
Okay, so also it's important for us to understand that charity begins at home. It is the first place where we begin our early learning, where we learn to speak a language, learn the cultural values of our ancestors, and receive first lessons on how we must behave and live together with others in our neighborhoods, communities, villages, towns, and cities, and in our country. The home is the first place where we learn how to wash our faces, brush our teeth, how to get dressed, how to sit at a dining table, how to greet each other, and how to behave towards one another as family members. So the home, our home, where you come from, charity begins at home. So in the home there, you teach your children the things they need to know, such as being able to express themselves freely to you. Also teach them they need to know that stealing is not good. Killing is not good. Bearing false witness against somebody about something that you don't know, but because you won't put the person in trouble, that's a bad behavior. Seeing your friend happily married and you're trying to disrupt their marriage, that's bad. That should not covet their neighbor's wife. That should not steal. That should not kill. That should not lie. Obey and respect your parents so that your days may be long on earth. So all these things are things that our people, our parents taught us when we were coming up, but today that's not the case. People are going out and they're stealing. They're stealing things that don't belong to them with impunity. As it was said, is something acceptable. It's not an acceptable norm or custom or practice in any given civilized or organized society. But we are doing it in Liberia. People steal and they go around bluffing the people that they're stealing from, and they think it is good. So, but I'm sure that their parents taught them not to steal. They told them that they must work hard for whatever they want in life. So it's important that you teach your children. I want you to tell the children that the stealing that is going on is wrong, so that they don't grow up thinking that stealing is good. Teach the children, tell them that the killing and stuff that's going on is wrong, because I don't want them to think that because other people killed and they got big jobs in Liberia, so it's a good thing. So these are things that you must please teach your children at home, to let them know that Yes, we understand that these things are happening in their faces. They've seen them. They've grown up in them. They grew up in violence and all of that. But that's not how people live in a society. In a civilized society where there must be law and order, you don't do those kinds of things.
Te tuanumdo chanin kaso no booking pimbole bochape chienin sinani. Men to tuanumdo pe kuyelele tuane. Lelang kalanchwava. Tuana. Sinung apa kalam sinung o peloncho mindo yomuang pwede o tuana mandani. Ta manda tuanumdo pe madu mundua sa. Viling. Hale ya tunum to viling ding. Menum na. Viling le ningte. Chulang. Men chobena ya su atusa pe dimi ya atusani. Anita adimi pe tunya. Asola malo happy. No lo dimi chulante. Ape kuchwa mdole le pema pe kudunya chokende. Omadu mundu ho chokende ho chuwo. Shedio sube. Unolambo simbo dimi ya kanu ofinya no chaya manda. Kanyo du mula ninte. Duye ya pila de chike ninte. Duye ya hala be modu muna. Chwaba ke kalanda beleng. Duye na kalan chwaba. Anan manda chwa na mena manda mawaye. Lela mchanu mimpe kunchwana. Yomu makishi oko. Masina valam mabeleng. Yoba na bana le nang. Bilen le ninte. Chulanda nindi biole. Bando ochi sanga moto alanda mokesi chene minum kwel makolu etio mo bululu le bengule ma pe chendo wo kunjo so ekendele ila mpe kunchwa na kalanchwa mba yandi bendo pila ta pe kunchwa nya tempe kunchwa na ale dile nan jole njole chedile jo hiwola chi banda ki wo dibo le malwe o valley government yone le masola vata bendang con pwede tempe kuchwa na ale atundi choma suekende atundi choma diva na noni matosa le shedi mbe mahusola kanyo meva ndato musola ya ucho lendele tatosa beswe ito ikedeve meleka hivi numla chini ela mpe kunchwa na masina soncho kendewo asoncho mbondondo ni labela na ancho ho chije yole ni sola konyulo le mbombo boyono ni konyulo na jema ona pwede ni solando.
So that's why the development of rules, regulations, destination of functions, duties, and responsibilities began in the home to ensure discipline and rule of law. Parents made rules and regulations in the home and assigned duties and responsibilities to each family member as safety guidelines to protect and defend the family from imminent danger and to meet the threshold of self-preservation and pursuit of happiness. There are two things that are very important: self-preservation. How do you keep yourself alive? How do you ensure that the family is safe? These are things that started from the home, and based upon that, that's how governments were established to make laws and regulations. However, when laws are made, they must be enforced. When laws are made, they must be enforced. If you tell your children, say, 6 o'clock, I want everybody to be home. By 6 o'clock, you want to make sure that they are home. If they're not home by 6 o'clock, then they must face the consequences of their action for not obeying what you told them to do. So laws are not just made to just be there, to be overlooked, but they are made to be enforced. And that's part of the problem we have in Liberia and in other parts of Africa, because we make laws and we don't enforce them. The law prohibits people to steal. When you steal, you are not entitled to serve in any public position. But we disrespect that law, and people steal from age to age, and they are still in government. The law prohibits people to kill. When people kill, when you kill anybody and you are found guilty, it's punishable either by death or it's punishable by long-term imprisonment. Not for you to take the person and give them big jobs. That's what we're doing in Liberia. So that's why this program is important, because we want the children to understand, because most of the youth, over 35% of the population of Liberia, was born during the conflict time. So they don't know what peace and tranquility is about in a society. They're born where they grew up to see what's that? People who killed, people who committed other crimes, atrocities, and who stole money. They see them riding big cars and people praising them, calling them honorable. And that's the wrong message we are sending to the young people. That's why it's important for us to educate Liberians to understand which road to take. And that road is to obey the law, because when you obey the law, then everybody will be on an even playing field.
Na la bele ya nchela chwa na mi pe kunda soncho kende wonte le lancha na soncho mon ha yon nondo won kani nyana beru hawa sava kandondo kwene o yugule ni kinya kala nda chan ni madina ndo savaram ado sava bana wana chochi eni nano achimbu ato salevile ta to savile mpe sava at ope sava kung uno mahandu yene tibana kontembu sava pe yene chie valoma dio noni botosa le sava otembu mukpo sava fe atosha pe mema handu be malanda la pe ma hota to sape ne vando noni matosa he yon nunum he yon nunum le kon shedi twanum do adi ga na chimbu le num chimbu be e pale ya adi nye dia cheni nimeona ni ando chimbu pale ya ke dunya dia keta handu sava pe num handu sava o num jo sava yo moni twanum do chenum pelende ha o chimbu nyandine ato chimbu pe o chomo module o chimbu ake momo shedi o chimbu ake momo tambembo tambum ete kenubo mabengu shedi twambe ma adina ala bijo place no le la de la ni o ko belo sava jo ko malondo chondu biyo le kanio sinama ana bisa wale nyenye yon nunum eta handu sava de madina num tembu sava be he yon nunum ni biya ndo tembu be atosa nyendine andu yon nundo nimeona moto sale blemi yon no shedi o to salele la bele ya mpe ku mena lo ku bi sava ya liye ti bando bi sava pe no ni no mo twale sava o tembu wo ana wana yie mpe sava ko nyenyo bo yon nundu bando di petin di mi pe sava ho no bi pe adi no bando di pe la di do adi mi pe ando o cheli o di pe la bo ngo cheli pe o si la bidi ni o valo ke bando di pe amando shedi atengi wo ka ye be do ni twana chibe mundo invenda pe kule agedi nae aso ekende echo ni wana dide cho sawane lende mahiola tiadi yola lelang ado sawabe numpila num simla chi madimia savaho ya doni dia numpila valolo fe yekembe do pila ma savago bana na yempe savago o sola value number to sale savaho tembu matosa mi bana na fe mi shode mi do mo twa sava manye pe otoni ela now yeni nan kan twa na pe ko ni ne chu kende wa nye chu on tento sale ne na ye ma la bila mbo singa kende ye na ye ma mi hin la bila le to hu no.
And that's why recently we've received a lot of information regarding people getting missing in Liberia. So safety concerns are also part of this program. We are very concerned about the safety of the people in Liberia. People are getting missing and the investigations are pending. As a result, the lives of Liberian families are in jeopardy. and act the mercy of murderers who most often go unpunished. And that is very, very concerning because the family, each family is supposed to protect its members. You're supposed to make sure that you are safe, that you eat, you have roof over your head, and that you contribute towards the well-being of the society, and that you also obey the laws of the country. So at this time, it's important because during the rebel incursion, during the war in Liberia, in order for communities and families to protect themselves, they have vigilante groups in the communities. And I think that the various communities around the country in Liberia should organize their vigilante groups to make sure that every member of that community can be accounted for, and that you cooperate with one another, that you provide support for those who will be doing the shifts, the different shifts, to make sure that their community is safe. And also that parents and adults must provide adequate supervision for their children. When they're going to school, make sure you know when they're coming out, and when they're coming from school, if they got to walk, let them walk in group, especially those who live in the same community, walk in group to come, so that your lives can be safe. It's important for people to feel safe in their homes, in their communities, and in their country.
Sway lebol nan sway himbele ukol sinsin de choni le kende ye la bele ya. La bela sinsin ta nobe o dola hiyo lambengu bandava somba fula bai fula ba nyalo jo fula ba kendo jo afinye logo finye obio adi finye logo chawando lo mun bomba mun tuyo ke banato saso munda kwenda tie aha okuna tende fula madimi afinya ho nduto saso ehe ni duye nye bana yo nune awodo jeli yo atusanya bana ndi mun bom fula le ila la bele ya sinsin wana fe chal achuan mda ma fe kunda ma do savalang de mi wana fe va kende ani me la bela to sinsin je tempe kutwa na ale me kende ye be jo hunon ta do savate avana wana fe biliona mo bilo le ngompumdo man na fe va chieni pale seking iva no ma pa fulule ma to sami vana wana fe obido lo le ngompumdo be man na fe va chieni ta to sale dere fanum do ko esuku asina telengo mati asina telengo kwale achano ngapwe poli achapi achapili ahandu ngo bulencho ahandu mbakang umpile pe na nye to yonondo chiendo cho woni achapi apwe ngafambule numdo kwa yando son chilencho so e yonnum be to ma jo sinan abele ya memi do nun kollo o yungule na le mi sim ma finya ma sim la te mi yungule den vanum kol ana betelen chogbo abele ya watu sa son kende kani son bondo ba yo nondo ila nyenda to sawo to apiando a ochi oni ma do onu na pile ichol ha ba oluang ni ha ba la hol le ma wa me di ando le ma to sami bana na fiva o ba kende jo mo lo ba kende jo ha ba luang ha ba la hol ta sanga pe achileng ha ba luan da cheng ta be akwebele ila nkuda la ba le ndebele kila lampe me no la mi le bende chole yonondo le son bon me don chomo yonondo kuda la pede no la tin mi tisi lantolo kanita sina pe mawanda cho la holo fo de ke mi me va no akwele ya ta to sa tin pe pangu pum e vileng anda to malo tin vile ma yango nya jelen to sa ila la bele ya tula mi handum vele kuda la bana na kalancho abami ndo mbala na pile mena ndoku ndo sa me kuda la vale de la vaye ne pombona ndo la mimbanda kio nkenda.
So in life there are two basic human rights that you must protect. One is the right to self-preservation, self-defense. You must defend yourself. You must defend your life. You must protect your life. You must protect your family members. You must protect yourself from evil people, from things that will destroy society and that will destroy mankind. Self-preservation is very important. Self-preservation is important. So each family, each Liberian family must go about, make sure that they secure themselves to account for the members of their families every day, every night. Make sure that everybody is home on time so that all of these different mysterious killings and things that are going on, so that you will be safe from them.
Yo munanjo ho so ekpe ye choni and I dimidi otale ni ya. Tidempa ma Sullivan do below halls a Sullivan bi pecho no hote. Kane bi ten le van mo hope me mi amachwa to lo achwa lati. Bende kelele en lo ke ma ko Sullivan na tidem below hot. Choni ma num panacho che yola chiyo. Samata mafinya akala. Sweking ijo swe num pe num bole bo sweking jonile ma tosa mi amule num do ba o ba kende ju. Kanita tosa kente yenye vomba pe yon nondo. Twanum do va pe long o wana num ula famule bilo walum pe yon num pe da kwede yon nungoda rie yenye jo fula koni. Lela vana wana fe finya ni kala ni mo pelon chu le bana chuanum da famule num do simda lati numba wana da bangani bangada ma simda lati ma chomda ne saku nenda loku baba o kende ye ninge atosa kente me kadu to sa sin ichol as telen di mini remi bana no chua famule num da ma ababe idi a chempe anua vana wana fe ojokende ojokende yuna da kwenda chiela mpire nkwenchi ehuno kele nko hiyo pe machidale na ma finya chie asinanye ndo sabele wo keta tosa kende macha mapuen me sombo mu yo mu mundo yo numpe kollo che num do a o chwa no cho be.
So no one has any exclusive rights to step on you, kill or threaten you without facing the consequences of their actions, because the Constitution of Liberia guarantees that we all are equal before the law. This is what the expression rule of law means. It means equal justice and protection for all Liberians under the law.
Vana che to labela bodimi ayaya ichi aike nang ma ya kondo cha oke nang ma ili wana fe telengo telen ichi bunya wana telengo telen bana no ya kongo kenante kani ta no be o ya wana sa wale labele ya bodimi ma na labele ya kwede anye pile kwe na njona kwede a bana pile kwe na njoni sa wa hol lela sao tambao numao memba no bolion kaninum don kwede tweno min hiru num madi mi anum num hiyo wanda kwede na kwede wana pile kwe na njoni sa wa hol.
So here are some safety tips for you. First, all families and those living in rented room houses and in their private homes must set a curfew time that all members of the household or home must adhere to, so that you may be able to account for one another every day. Every day you want to make sure that you got 5 people living in a house, in a house where that at the end of the day, in account for those 5 people. If one person does not come home on time, you want to make sure that you alert everybody in the community to find out how this person is doing. check on one another. That's why it's important for us to first of all understand that we are all family. We are family. All Liberians, we are family. So we must also look out for one another. That's our tradition. Our tradition teaches us to be our brothers and sisters keepers. So if you don't see we are in your community, everybody see where did he go? I mean, he didn't come home last night or so and so, but also make sure that you have a curfew time that everybody can come home together, so that after that curfew time, the person doesn't come, then it becomes a thing of concern. Oh, Junior boy was supposed to be home by 8 o'clock, but he's going to 10 o'clock now. We don't know where he is. If he has a phone, call the phone to find where he is. If he's anywhere safe, then he must say so. You know, check on one another. That's very important at this particular time.
Lela since nala bele yanyi nano mintu sa since ndotone community o che chal alpha mule nundo malime ava ne nancho since bana na fe dole ngomi ogo ole ngompumdo babe idi telemva na na fe fula bia telempa mi na fula num chuwa na bana ati enindo to sama sina mavan na fe chu kende bia jo fula jo kola funde bana ichol miona mi dole ngom yo ho dole ngom yo bo hiu do be kachi kaje bo hinte adumu banda o pananya cho na pile o tanda ninda a unu o yemanu o banani bana kani palen le se ha bo fula ichi yo dole la to sa kempe en anola ma sim le famule numdo kun chom kala famule yo ninne then value fum dan la atwado fum do avelo kaje to ansabe kaje kwenche kaninin haunchi yo numte vela valo vieche to sama piuna dende nan to sane ni kala famule yo yorati ete chape mi no sawale nyenyele anawa na tele ngo fula wo fula tele ngo je ma wo hi anacho velo bosina nye yo nunde famule yo o vele ndene konjo so ete dele na la bile yale lela mpe ku le mi kala famule yo bo wana te mba nundi mpile ma famule le la bela hidiolati.
So, in other words, community members must be willing to provide support to keep your community vigilante system in place. The family members must also be united to make sure that everybody is safe. And also that with the community vigilante groups and things, you also want to work in collaboration with the national security system. And if you see anything that's going wrong, that is not right, you see strange movements in your community, whatever it is, alert the community leaders and also alert the law enforcement people so that they can be of assistance to you. Security, peace, and reconciliation is the responsibility of everybody, including myself and you, and all those who are out there who are listening to this program. We ask that you understand that we are all one family. We are one people, and our safety, our well-being, our happiness, our pursuit to happiness, and also our self-preservation. Those things are very important. Do not allow anybody to just walk around and slaughter you and slaughter your children, and your children get missing and they just go free of charge like that. That's not how societies are run. That was a long time ago when man was a barbarian, when he lived under jungle justice. That's when that happened. But when man became civilized and began to live in communities and all of that, rules, laws, and regulations were established so that we may have law and order. And that's what we need in Liberia. But law and order cannot prevail if the family, if the community members, if the ethnic groups and everybody don't work together and don't see one another as brothers and sisters. we must realize that we are brothers and sisters. To keep the peace and to reconcile, we must treat one another with respect. We must respect the sanctity of human life, and we must respect other people's properties. And we must respect ourselves and respect those that we deal with. And based on that, we will end the program on this note, that safety, rule of law is the responsibility of all responsible citizens of Liberia. Let's work together as a family. Let's treat one another as a family, because that's what we are.
Ale le sodo pelo sen ham injo dimiore. Le kende ye fambule yo kende ye tandana. Na kwede no min don na pile. Ta tuepe mako mi tewa ma ye la oh via lo ya na kwede mfulang. Mfula ma jimana ma kalana ma fila na so he yon non. Na kwede mfulang min kwacho nyeto yon nondo. Keta no la bela kinsi be bando o wati o mo ti abawando ho boli ndonchi mbu o muli pente yo nondo a just we ni. Min bat somba le to sala bela. Na ku yo lo kumba pilo kwe na njoni. So ba pe so wonde wan yon nondo be na numdo. A chipe kan numo so yo wonde ni. Koma kwa sim du ike na nlo kuma malando ma no be kan ile du kele ke ko kalula nta sila njolu la nkela a song njolu du mo song ko julong muntu sani bosina ma anatio ya joni duye no vanda ela bila sisi mun ponto yon nonte ando anado bube wanda hi onondo ha to dong so ni oba to yolamba ndujo chango kenjo swetendele nale tulendele na mu makishori ni anan mbannonte namu makisho swe yon numba na pile de na pede yon nun ani fo dole na ko jolo kumba pilo kwe na nchoni na ko yungo be makisi na nchoni ela swe yon numba na pile de na yon nun ela nchweleng jokinda program dogo lanya dumulo ma na la bele ya na pile kwe na nchoni bien simnu na pile min hibin la bela lati min hibin namu na lati elang nan hin leng leng pale elongo telen cho peloncho emin dumula beleya ma swei yonu bana pilete na ko yonu ni in obe he min bi di balation ne insina ne na loku min bi sonje min to sa swei di pile to sa ni o me won min to sa dia a pa kalale hel wana swe won chule ani fo do na pede to wadium pile min do tasila na pile min to sa son kendele lende nale elan la nual tao nyali yang milanda to wa program do ho to wa huno onyalo dini chonni ayang nilang ina pe puchwa nyame nyaye manda mawasi shedi o labila ho ni o batanda la ni abanda kwepe
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank you so much for listening to this program. I'm your presenter, Dr. Joe Baba, along with our Kisi interpreter, statesman, Henry Faya Tamba, who is acting director of the Decorative Artists Theater, Monserrato chapter. We want to say thank you very much for listening. We ask that you continue to tune into our program on radio or Advan FM 93.7 on Saturday morning, 10 a.m. and a repeat broadcast on Wednesday at 9 p.m. Thank you once again. This has been the Decorative Artists Theater Civic and Peace Audiovisual Series. See you next week. Thank you. And thanks so much, Henry, for a beautiful job. This is what we call an educated Liberian. You are able to express yourself in the English language, and you are able to express yourself in your local vernacular, in Kisi. May God richly bless you. Thank you so much. And bye-bye to everyone.